Hello there, loyal subscribers and people who have randomly stumbled across this video. In my latest build, we're taking a look at a humble but down-to-earth Nord, referred to as the local hero. If you want to hear his story, then keep watching, but if you're after a specific section of the build, then you can skip ahead using the timestamps in the description below. The local hero had a fairly normal life. He was born and raised in Skyrim, and helped his family out wherever he could. They owned a lumber mill, and he would chop firewood for the locals, in order to earn a little extra coin, and just help everyone out. He was a generally good-willed person, understanding that everyone struggled at times, but things would be easier if people were more inclined to help one another out. His parents died whilst he was still relatively young, but he didn't let this get the better of him. He continued to run the lumber mill, enlisting the help of any locals who needed work. Despite always paying them a fair wage and being generally seen as friendly, he was still quite a quiet and reserved person. He didn't spend many nights in the local inn, and wasn't one for small talk. Due to his seclusion from the others near him, he didn't learn about the bandit raid until the day after it had taken place. None of his workers had shown up, so he headed into the village to see why. He was horrified by the sight of blood on the ground, and overheard from sobbing villagers that several of the men had been cut down by a trio of bandits, who had then gone on to kidnap a pair of children, holding them to ransom. After learning some more details of the night's events, he headed back to the lumber mill briefly, picking up his axe from the chopping block and then making his way in the direction the bandits had left. It didn't take him long to track down the bandits. They were hiding out in a cave and making enough noise to alert anyone who came within half a mile of them. The entrance was unguarded, and he approached unchallenged. He knelt briefly before heading in, praying to Talos that the hostages were still alive. As he strode forward, it became clear that the bandits had been celebrating with several bottles of mead. The trio didn't even notice him approaching at first, and by the time they did, he had already swung his axe towards the closest man. The metal head buried itself into the bandit's bare chest, causing a horrified look of terror to pass over his face before death claimed him. Wrenching the tool back out, the Nord woodsman faced the pair of fur-clad bandits. Both had drawn their weapons, one a mace and the other a sword, however neither seemed eager to advance. He made a feint with his axe towards one, causing them to stagger backwards. It was clear they weren't in any real shape to fight, and the Nord took advantage of this, barreling into a mace-wielding bandit, knocking him to the ground before spinning around to face the other. The swordsman was attempting an overhead strike, but it was slow, allowing for the Nord to grab the man's wrist before slicing the bladed edge of his own weapon across the man's neck. The final bandit was still scrambling to his feet, but he wasn't going to be given the chance to do so. With the strength gained from a life of hard work, the woodsman buried his axe into the bandit's skull, splitting it like he would a log. He made his way to the back of a cave, and found the children tied up there. Fortunately, they didn't appear to be too badly hurt. Some minor bruising, but nothing fatal from what he could tell. He untied their bonds and led them out of the cave, making sure to shield their eyes at the start so they didn't have to see the bodies of the bandits. When he returned with the children, he was heralded as a hero. For the following weeks, his mill was worked by volunteers, and he received several gifts for his actions. This happy time, though, was sadly fleeting. Imperial presence within the region had been increasing as of late, and all of a sudden the ban against Talos worship was being enforced to a far greater degree. The local hero spoke out against this. Most of the villagers worshipped Talos, himself included. Each and every one of them deserved the right to worship the deity of their choice. His peaceful protest was in vain though, and it didn't take long for the soldiers to come to his mill one night and take him away, sentenced to death by the Thalmor, simply for following his own beliefs. The main skills of this build are one-handed, smithing, and heavy armour. In the one-handed tree, you want to get all the dual-wielding perks, and as many ranks of armsmen as possible. Dual flurry and dual savagery work in tandem to make your dual-wielding power attacks take down most enemies in under a second. Smithing is the main crafting skill of this build. You'll need to head up to the advanced armours perk for this particular build, in order to improve all your gear to the full extent. We don't rely much on enchantments, so this is a critical skill for the character. Heavy armour obviously helps to make the build a fair bit tougher. As we don't wear a helmet though, we won't be going down the right hand side of a tree, instead focusing on the left hand side. This will lead to us getting the conditioning perk. This is a great perk, as it not only removes the weight value of worn heavy armour, but also reduces how much stamina you will be using while sprinting, making us far more mobile. As an additional skill, you may also want to throw in alchemy, in order to have a good supply of healing potions to help you out. Paralysis poisons are also a great help when facing against enemies with staying power. When levelling with this build, you'll want to put about 60% of your levels into health and the other 40% into stamina. This gives you plenty of room to power attack without taking too much away from your health bar. As a standing stone for this build, I would recommend the Lord Stone. Sure, it's a fairly basic one, but this guy can do with all the added defense he can get his hands on. The main shout for this build is Elemental Fury. This is the most important part of the build, and you should make finding the words of this shout a priority if you want to unlock the true potential of a character. Although this shout is of vital importance to the build, don't forget that you always have the Battlecry power at your disposal too, if you end up needing it. The weapons for this build are a Skyforged Steel War Axe and Valdir's Lucky Dagger. You'll want to improve these two weapons as much as you can with smithing, however make sure you don't try adding an enchantment. Valdir's Lucky Dagger already has an effect on it, but fortunately this is fine, as it counts as unenchanted as far as the game is concerned. If you use enchanted weapons, then the Elemental Fury shout won't work on them, so stick with basic unenchanted weapons. By wielding the dagger in your left hand and the axe in your right, you'll find you can land attacks at a staggering speed. The armour for this build is a set of Dawnguard heavy armour minus the helmet, an Amulet of Talos and a Fortify one-handed ring. I really like how this set looks when the helmet isn't worn, as it makes the wearer not constantly look like they're about to charge into some huge battle, while still providing a decent bit of protection. I always like to be able to walk around towns without my character looking too paranoid, and this set helps out a fair bit with that. Having an Amulet of Talos is not only important for the improved shout cooldown, but also to show the character as a devout worshipper of the god. Finally, a Fortify one-handed ring can help ensure you take down enemies with ease. Admittedly, you could go with any suitable enchantment on the ring, but this is one I personally recommend. When playing as this character, I would recommend joining both the Stormcloaks and the Dawnguard. After suffering at the hands of Imperial rule, the local hero isn't going to require much persuading that the Stormcloaks are in the right. You don't necessarily have to do the entire questline, but joining up is a must. The Dawnguard are here for the fairly obvious reason of equipment. You wear Dawnguard heavy armour, so you're going to need to help them out. That being said, helping protect people against vampires isn't something this Nord would say no to. As a final note for factions, make sure to help out the smaller groups in Skyrim, as well as any individuals. All those characters who you may overlook need help too, and that's largely what this build is about. This man doesn't care about becoming the most powerful Dragonborn, accumulating wealth, or being a feared warrior. He simply wants to help people in whatever way he can. As a follower for this build, you could potentially go for anyone virtuous and moral, however, I decided to travel alone. The local hero isn't one for company, and can get by on his own well enough. This build plays as a very fast dual-wielding warrior, and is almost a glass cannon. You can dish out a staggering amount of damage up close, but you're not a tank who can stand there and let enemies hack and slash at you for too long. Before any fight, you'll want to use the Elemental Fury shout, in order to carve through enemies in seconds. Once this runs out, you'll have to handle being a standard dual-wielding warrior, but even then you can still pack a real punch with enough dual-wielding power attacks. The shout has a 50-second cooldown, with all 3 words, but if you're wearing an Amulet of Talos and have recently got the Blessing of Talos, you'll find you won't be waiting around long to use the shout again. If all else fails, you can just consume some vegetable soup for infinite power attacks to get you by. For roleplaying, all you need to do is help people. Someone asks you to retrieve a family heirloom, then go get it. A beggar asks for gold, give them a few pieces. And if someone just wants a quick fetch quest fulfilled, who are you to deny them that? Thank you all very much for watching my latest build. If you did enjoy it, then please leave a like. And if you're feeling especially generous, you can even help out with future builds by becoming a patron to the channel and donating. There will be a link to that in the description along with my social media. Why not say hi to me on Twitter? That's all for now, but if you want more like this, then subscribe to the channel, and take a look at the links on screen right now.